Hi guys, Yossi here from Nisnas Industries, and welcome to our crowdfunding conversation in cooperation with our good friends over at Gadget Flow. All right, so today we're going to do something a little bit different. This is the beginning of a series that we're going to be doing on Kickstarter taboos. Now you may be asking why taboos? Well, Kickstarter kind of exists in this gray area in between selling product and between having ideas and hopes of a product. It's kind of a strange place where it's very important for us as creators to be able to tell all of our story, make sure that our marketing is on point, but also tell the truth. So in between all of this, there tends to be kind of this gray area where sometimes there is mistrust. Sometimes people end up getting something that they didn't want or something that they do want, but it functions differently. And it's important for us to be able to talk about all of these issues, all of these kind of like grayish taboos in Kickstarter so that we can be better creators. It's kind of an important point. So our first taboo is going to be, well, about the truth. Why? Because of what I just explained, all of these gray areas where you're not really selling a product, but you do have an amazing idea and you do have an amazing prototype and you're telling everyone that you have this amazing thing that you're about to launch onto the world. Because of all of these things, a lot of times people take a look at Kickstarter and rightfully so have quite a bit of criticism at it. And a lot of times even backers, before they even get to see what amazing new product you have, are going to come in skeptical. So your job is to tell the truth. And now we're going to explain why. So what I want to try to do is give 13 or 14 tips on how to tell the truth on Kickstarter and why it's important. So let's walk through them, and then we can talk about why it's important to tell the truth. So we'll talk about how to tell the truth and then why it's important. Sound good? All right. So let's start with number one, transparency. So today we're in the second half of 2019, and it is super, super important to be transparent because the entire world is transparent. So let's say, for instance, you have an amazing product and you have really great electronic sketches of it, and different renders and different videos, but it's not working yet. You need to make sure that you're telling everyone where you're at, because they're going to find out. And a lot of times it's much better just to tell the story. This is where I want to be. We want to have the most amazing XYZ thing in the end, and take people along the journey with you, as opposed to saying, this thing is already working and here we go, because you can't do that. And if you do, that adds even more to kind of like a cloudy reputation that sometimes Kickstarter has in not delivering, and that does bad for all of us. So that's a theme that's going to run all the way through our conversation. So Kickstarter has a reputation, and we live in it. And it's our job to elevate it, as opposed to kind of like fall into it. So let's make sure that we're super, super transparent. So that's rule number one. Number two, wishful thinking. I think all of us as creators, we have a lot of wishful thinking going on. We want our gear to be as good as possible. We really do. And we take you along the ride, on the ride with us. And what that can create is a discrepancy between hope and expectations. In other words, I hope it'll be great. I really do. And then what happens if it doesn't? So to make sure that you're taking our previous point about transparency and putting it into this. So the best advice I can give is wishful thinking is great in the design process, but not once your product is up on Kickstarter. You should be aware of all of your pitfalls, all of them. So if it's production or lead times, or if your product depends on something that comes from a different country, or shipping, we'll talk about shipping a lot, make sure that your expectations match the hopes of your backers, because if they don't, they're going to perceive you as a liar, and that's really important. That will be the end of your reputation, and it will add to Kickstarter's reputation. And then the next creator that has a really amazing idea, someone already has kind of like the feeling of, oh wait, this Kickstarter didn't do well by me. So make sure that you talk the talk and walk the walk. All right, wishful thinking is great, but once you get to Kickstarter mode, make sure your wishful thinking has already turned into product. Cool. Which brings me to my next point. MVP is not product. So the most viable principal product that you can make is not a product yet. So if you have an idea and you've turned it into an initial product, in other words, one that hasn't gone through production lines and hasn't gone through QC and hasn't gone through everything that a product has to go through, and you just have this minimally viable product, that's not a product. And make sure that everyone knows it. Be truthful about it. Tell the truth. That's really, really important. Why? Because you'll be able to take people along with you on the journey to turn this minimally viable product into a product. If you don't do that and you let people think that what you've done so far is a final product, that's not going to work. So because we're broadcasting, when we talk to our backers, we're actually broadcasting to them. And when we talk to them, then we need to be able to talk to them about what they're going to have in their hands. And a minimally viable product is not what people will have in their hands. They will have what you have mass produced for them, and that includes packaging, that includes everything. So make sure that people know exactly where you're at now and where you'll be later. And any discrepancy between the two is seen as a lie. And I don't think any of us are going into this trying to lie at all. But just to make sure that, like this goes to my previous point, if you want to make sure that their expectations match your hope, make sure that your minimally viable product is shown exactly as that. It is a minimally viable product, then take people along the production journey with you, and use video, use every storytelling device that you have to take people along with you so that they can see it. Cool. Next, which brings me to my next point, YouTube. YouTube has become, over, as we all know, over the past however many years, the place to be able to have a conversation with our backers. As of 2018, I think it was. Is that right, Max? 2018, no more Kickstarter Live? Or 2019? Kickstarter had this amazing, at least I thought it was amazing, platform called Kickstarter Live, where you could talk directly to backers. They don't have it anymore. I actually don't know why they don't have it anymore, because I loved it. But it doesn't so much matter whether or not you use Kickstarter's platform or YouTube. Make sure you communicate with your backers, and YouTube really is a place to do it now. And probably the most important advice we can give is make sure people see your face and people see your product, and they know that you are the one in charge of this product, making it. You're in charge of everything, so that everyone who's going to be receiving it already has received it, knows that there's a name and a face connected to it. And that makes you 100% accountable and also 100% transparent. So tell the story, do it on YouTube, have a whole bunch of movies while you do it, videos while you do it. And it really is a storytelling platform to do it in. And obviously, you're going to have to address all of the flaws while you do it. And I know, believe me, I know it's very painful to do it. But our conclusion from all of this is that that's the way it should be done today in 2019. So in the age of transparency, take people along with you and show them your flaws. Nothing else compares to that. So that people know what to expect. They also know that maybe you didn't hit it out of the park this time, but you will next time. So you still have them along for the ride. If it's not now, then later. But anything else is, in this age of transparency, is seen as a lie. And That's the last thing you want to be doing. So a lot of people said, like in 2008, that we're entering like the era of in the trade of trust. In other words, trust supersedes money. Like how many stars you have on Amazon, how many stars you have on wherever, eBay or what Airbnb or what have you. You want to be able to trade in trust and make sure it's number one. Cool. All right, a couple of ideas from a couple of examples from our experience on this and where we did wrong and how we can do better. So we had 2 projects that speak to this. One was our very first flask, the Coal. And when we introduced it all the way back in 2015 or 2014, which seems like a million years ago today, 2015? A million years ago today. The world has changed dramatically. We had an idea of introducing it. It's a flask, a little cylindrical flask, and Max maybe will have a little video of it or a little shot of it right here. We had an idea that wouldn't it be amazing if we had it both for spirits, for whiskey, and for coffee. And that was our wishful thought, and it really was wishful thinking. We really did want to do it, and then we found out that no way in hell will it work for espresso. It just won't. It'll keep your coffee hot for all of 20 seconds. And all hell broke loose, and our wishful thinking was perceived negatively, to say the least, on Kickstarter and elsewhere. And we had to change the product to make sure that people know that it only works with whiskey. And mind you, after we were able to communicate this as well as we possibly could, it ended up being our best-selling item. It is beautiful. It was beautiful before. It's beautiful now. But we were able to say, okay, it doesn't work in this way. It does work this way. And I mean, if I could go back, I would say, tell people exactly what it is. Tell people what the challenges are. If they think that it might work on coffee, let them test it and see, but we can't promise it. That's what I would say. And that would have been great advice going back. And our another example from Nisnas Industries is an opposite one. So we had our first bag, the Vortex Shield. And the Vortex Shield, we decided to make it theft-proof using an RFID protection. So all you really have to do with any bag, just as you can YouTube this, you just need to wrap your wallet in tin foil. That will make it RFID protected. And putting this into a high luxury bag was a little bit tricky, but we did it. We tested it, and we put this testing into our Kickstarter so that we could show that all of our bags were RFID proof. You couldn't use an RFID scanner to steal your identity off of your credit card. And that was great. That was proof of concept, and we could do it, and we could mass produce it. So we could tell all of our customers, all of our backers, yes, it can be done. And they ended up being amazing customers. So we've had another bag since then. We're working on a new bag now. So that's that. Cool. All right. 2 points. One, and we've kind of covered these before, but we need to stress them because they really are important. One is that people on Kickstarter are suspicious. Know that they are suspicious because of everything that we just explained. There is now a decade. Kickstarter has been around for maybe a little bit more than a decade. And people have made mistakes like this. Like the ones that we've been talking about, and people will become suspicious. Will your product perform? Will it be as good as you state that it is? And if not, then why? People really will. They really will have these barriers up, but at the same time, there's an intersection of suspicion and hope, and that's the good part. So they will be suspicious of you, and at the same time, they will have the same wishful thinking that you do, and you need to meet them halfway. In other words, you may not have your wishful thinking anymore if you go to our point number 2, like drop your wishful thinking, but they still will have it. So the idea is to be able to say, okay, fine, you're suspicious, but you want this to be amazing. It's your job to make the product amazing. So go through all of these points, know that they're suspicious, know that they're hopeful, and meet them halfway. And the second point of this, which is just hammering home the point that we made up until now, whether you want to or not, when you launch a product on Kickstarter, Kickstarter is your brand. And that's important to understand, because people on the Kickstarter marketplace, and it is in many ways a marketplace, obviously Kickstarter is not going to say that they are dealing in product, and they're not. They're dealing with creators. But in this gray world, you want to try to make a certain product. As you do, know that Kickstarter is either your primary or your secondary brand. And you're going into this with people's expectation of Kickstarter. And going back a decade, people have good experiences, bad experiences with Kickstarter. And whatever that is, it's your job to do well within that brand. So make it better. Make sure that everyone understands what you're doing. Make sure that you know that you're acting within the Kickstarter framework. Make sure that however suspicious people are, it's your job to make the brand better, because that's going to make it better for all creators. So there's nothing worse than a creator who blatantly goes back on his word, because that muddles the pool for all of us. All of us. If there's a creator that had, like, what was that? Was that 2 years ago? The laser razor or something, whatever that was. Nothing worse, because that makes everything worse for us, Max. If you put up the laser razor, that'll probably do us damage too, right? So don't put that up. Anyway, you get the point. Moving on. Shipping is a sticking point always. So telling the truth when it comes to shipping is difficult. So let me speak to you, one creator to another. When you're going into a project and you're thinking whether or not to put in free shipping, you can do it if you want to, but make sure that the numbers are real. In other words, if you're telling people that there is free shipping, and then later on throughout the project you're going to find out that shipping is more expensive than before, and you start flipping all of your rewards for whatever reason, that reeks of a lack of transparency, and someone who's obviously struggling with an issue. Communicate the issue with people. Communicate it. You will lose backers. Actually, we've had exactly this case of I think we made a miscalculation on shipping, and then we had to go all the way through our shipping protocols. We changed everything. We were super transparent. We lost backers, but we ended up winning in the end, because you have to be real with people, and there's no other way than to do that. Second point about shipping is, if you think it's going to take 2 weeks, tell people it'll take 2 months. People get really, really angry when stuff doesn't show up on time, but on time is for them. In other words, if on time is, if you tell people it'll be sent in April and it ends up showing up, in July, no good. But if you tell people that you're going to be sending in July and they ended up getting it in June, then you win. So go through all of your shipping protocols. Make sure that whatever the cost is, you either include that in your shipping or you say it's free shipping, and that's fine. Make sure you're okay with that. Make sure that everything is transparent, and give it another 2 months, because otherwise, again, you look like a liar and you hurt the entire Kickstarter community, to be blunt. All right, everything will be late. Not just shipping, everything will be late. So you need to prepare for every possible contingency. So your production chain doesn't work, whatever, and anything. So we can share from our experience that, because a lot of our products are made of wood, we had one project where an entire wood batch was no good. It was oak, and it was just it was not up to our QC. We got rid of it. It took 3 months. We got new wood in place, production, and so on and so on and so on. and we were transparent about it. As far as being transparent, do it in your updates, absolutely. Be transparent in your updates, absolutely. But put a YouTube video in there as well. So make sure that you have your face and your failure, showing people that you own up to your failure. So there's kind of like this weird Kickstarter tendency to have updates that aren't updates. You know what I mean? Like vague updates. Like, hey guys, everything's fine. Sometimes everyone's late. Like, go the extra mile. And that'll bring us to the next point. The reason you need to go the extra mile, I think that's our next point, yeah, is because hopes and expectations in Kickstarter are different from other places, right? So if people have had lousy Kickstarter projects in the past, that reflects on you. Because remember, from our previous point, Kickstarter is your brand. So if Kickstarter is your brand and people have had a bad experience with it in the past, in that case, you are already behind the ball. So you need to be holier than the Pope. You need to be better than everyone else. You need to make sure that your game is better. Your shipping game is better. Your communication game is better. Your truth-telling game is better. Your storytelling is better. Because if it's not, then you already are taking all of the experience that backers have had, going however many years back, and you're amplifying it. In other words, if they had a bad experience way back when, they have another bad experience, they'll never back a Kickstarter project again. And as a Kickstarter community, we need to be aware of that. Yeah. All right. It's two more things. Sometimes nothing works. So you can tell the truth. You can put up a YouTube video about it. And you can be extra careful about how you communicate with your backers. Talk to them about shipping. Make sure that people know that you showed them a minimally viable product and not a production product, and so on and so on and so on. You can do everything, and still people won't be happy. And you need to be ready for that, and you need to be ready to refund. That's just the reality of it. And there's nothing better for some. This is not all. Hopefully these are rare cases, but there's nothing better for an unhappy backer who needs a refund. There's nothing better for him than to get it. So be ready to refund. They may not be happy with what they got. They may be a scammer. They may have had expectations that you weren't responsible for. A million other things, but your job is to refund them. And you need to be cool about that. In other words, no, like, we don't offer refunds. And this could be a sticking point, but this is my 2 cents, and take it or leave it. You should never have a Kickstarter project that says we don't refund. You shouldn't have it. You may not want to put it in bold letters saying we'll refund everyone, because Kickstarter doesn't refund people. And this is an important point that maybe we shouldn't have left to the end, but is very important. Kickstarter does not refund people, therefore you don't have to, but you should. In other words, if you have someone who's really unhappy, they should get a refund. And as a good business practice, you should do that. Okay. All right. Last point. We're in 2019. Be better than Amazon. That's where you should be, and it's a hard. I know it's very hard to. It's very hard to do. Easy to say, very hard to do. But everything should be in place that your customer, your backer, turns into a customer and is happier with what they got than if they would have gotten something on Amazon. Why? Because Kickstarter is kind of already behind the ball when it comes to customer experience. You need to be aware of that. Take it and flip it, right? The expectation of your customer, let's just drop the backer for a minute. Let's talk about a customer as a customer. You're dealing with a person, you're creating a relationship with them, you're doing it on Kickstarter. Turn them into a customer. When you do that, it is your job to be better than the standard. because right now you're being seen as below standard. So jump above that and give the absolute best. Something that someone would obviously never get in Amazon. This is something that doesn't exist there, doesn't exist in the market anywhere. Make sure the service matches your wishful thinking. And that's our last point. All right. So I think that's it for this conversation. I hope all of these little tips were helpful. So you can feel free to follow us along as this Kickstarter Taboos series grows and our partnership with Gadget Flow as well. So you can find us on YouTube, Anisnas Industries. You'll be able to find us in our website, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and elsewhere. And that's it. Thanks, guys. Bye.